Chris Kirkey is the director of the Center for the Study of Canada and Institute on Quebec Studies at SUNY Plattsburgh. Welcome. It's always good to see you.
You too, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here. So if there are no major outbreaks and everything stays on track, Canada will open its border to Americans on August 9th.
Right.
Americans will need to be fully vaccinated. They'll need a negative COVID test before they can cross the border. The Trudeau government made this announcement a couple of weeks ago, but the U.S. has yet to follow suit. And in fact, we haven't heard a word, only that Homeland Security said that the current border restrictions will be extended until August 21st. Is that disappointing? Surprise?
No. I mean, we've heard voices of disappointment already, political voices of folks in the business community, and just, general folks who are anxious, if you will, to be able to have a fully accessible border so that Canadians can particularly take advantage of coming south who are fully vaccinated and have a negative COVID-19 test. A lot of folks were under the assumption that both sides would harmonize things right from the get-go and would have similar requirements. Obviously, that's not the case. When somebody said to me the other day, well, how come there's seemingly this delay on the part of the Biden administration or the United States to move forward vis-a-vis allowing Canadians to come in? My only response to that is, and somebody should not view that as some kind of, a deliberate attempt to sort of penalize Canada in some ways, but rather, when Joe Biden wakes up in the morning, Canada is not at the top of his foreign policy list of things that he needs to tackle. There's much larger issues that the community in Washington, bureaucratic political community are focused on, particularly when it comes to foreign affairs, whether it's Russia, whether it's China, whether it's the Middle East. It doesn't seem to matter. There's a long laundry list. In Canada, while important, is considerably further down that list. I have a sense that sooner rather than later, the Canadian vaccination numbers continue to rise in a very positive way. And the fact that although the Delta variant is clearly posing some challenges both in the United States and Canada, slowly but surely the number of vaccinated individuals in the United States, fully vaccinated, is going up. So frankly, I think it's just a matter of time, and yes, it is inconvenient, frankly. And interestingly enough, both the business community and the political community had focused all their attention on getting Trudeau, Prime Minister Trudeau, and the Canadian government, when they weren't really thinking about, they sort of assumed, I think it's fair to say, that, political authorities in Washington would be in lockstep with Ottawa, and they're not. So no, I'm not surprised, but I am surprised if it drags out for any considerable length of time. The fact that Canadian vaccination numbers are going up, the fact that they're taking a responsible position to Canadians right now and after August the 9th, Americans who want to enter Canada, making sure they're fully vaccinated, and COVID-19 test in place that's negative, and following all the protocols and procedures that you'll need to follow when you're in Canada. I think that'll go some distance to allaying any kind of American concerns.
There's been frustration for months that there haven't at least been talks starting, that there hasn't been some groundwork laid.
No, I know there's a sense that, this argument that's been coming forward repeatedly, pushing the idea of having some observable, quantifiable metrics by which the border could fully reopen was a good case to make. But it's clear that there wasn't this active binational coordination that arguably should have been taking place. So it remains to be seen when the United States will now move to match Canada.
If the U.S. opens the border to Canadians, is the thought that this late in the summer,
right,
that visitors will come down, which would be good to have the visitors back, but so many of the critical visitors, the tourists, the boat owners, the campers,
right,
the people that come down and spend several weekends or weeks here in the summer and really pump the money into the economy of the North Country. Is it pretty late in the season for them? Is this probably a wash for this summer?
I think it's pretty late. I think even if they were to reopen the border for Canadians to come down to the United States, let's say in late August or even early September, you're going to be able to capture, a segment of tax dollars, tax revenues, be it in Clinton, Essex, Franklin counties, for example, whether it's at a golf course or marina. And yes, you'll see more Quebec and Ontario plated cars here. But the truth is, this season and into the fall, which would be nice, but the truth is, this season Canadians are still going to be a bit hesitant about coming to the United States because of the sizable portion of Americans who are not vaccinated yet, and because of things like the Delta variant and things like that. So even if the border does reopen for Canadians to come to the United States, I think it would be a misnomer to expect that there's going to be a flood of Canadians coming down to our counties. There will be some, but not, it's going to take time.
There are Canadians who have flown down to Plattsburgh, hopped on a plane so they can at least spend some time on their boats on Lake Champlain. But your guess is for many others that if they have to go through so many steps, including a COVID test, that they may hold off on coming.
I think there's going to be a bit of a wait and see attitude. I think some people will be anxious. If you're looking at the land border crossing, for example, at Champlain, New York, I think they'll start to see an uptick, but I don't think it's going to be an overwhelming uptick. I think it's just going to take time, word of mouth, social media will get around about what does it take. You know, it's not simply that the border's open, but what do I need to have when I get to the border? Do I need to have a COVID negative test produced within the last 72 hours? Do I need to be able to provide, what do I need to upload into a US kind of portal, much like you do now if you're Canadian going north into the ArriveCan Canadian portal. So yeah, it'll take time.
There was a lot of speculation that Justin Trudeau was sort of gauging the feeling in Canada. Polls were showing that a lot of Canadians weren't thrilled with the idea of Americans coming back across the border, and people thought that perhaps he was looking at those polls and gauging whether or not to call an election, which is the other big news going on in Canada right now. Is the Prime Minister poised to call a federal election for this fall? And the best guess at this point is he seems to be leaning in that direction.
I think that's correct. I mean, on the COVID-19 front, regarding all these various steps, incremental steps that the government of Canada has taken, he's been very sensitive to public opinion polling in Canada vis-a-vis opening the border, and also hearing voices raised by various provincial premiers who at times have not been wildly excited about the prospect of opening the border. But he's also been thinking about the potential for a Canadian federal election. Under Canadian federal election law, Canada now has fixed elections since I think 2014. They have to have an election on the third Monday in October, 4 years after the last general election. So that means that the next fixed election date is October of 2023. The Prime Minister also has the prerogative, though, of saying, you know what, I don't want to wait. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Governor General, ask her to dissolve Parliament, and call a general election. And most people think because he's currently in charge of a minority government with the Liberal Party, that's what he'll do. And he'll do it sometime, it'll be a fast election, could be 30, 35 days, something like that. But there's an anticipation, the poll numbers aren't overwhelmingly, as we speak, in the Liberals' favor, but there's a sense that, now is a good opportunity to do that. Trudeau is considered to have done a good job by Canadians for the most part in handling this pandemic, the response of the Canadian government and coordinating with the provinces and territories on this. So, and while there's a lot of issues that are still outstanding that will arguably hurt Mr. Trudeau's electability, I think he's going to call an election soon.
And the sense is that they may be able to win a majority of seats in Parliament.
That would absolutely be his goal. He wants to not have to share power on a case-by-case basis with either the New Democratic Party, the Bloc Québécois, or the Conservative Party. So yeah, he would definitely like an outright majority.